Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video is going to be my full review of this knife, and this is the Demko Knives AD22. And so the AD22 is a design that Andrew Demko has made before as a kind of a custom, a hand ground knife, but this is from the first time that this was made as a production knife, or at least a semi-production knife, which I'll talk about later. And so I wanted to pick it up for a specific reason, and that is really how the AD20, another well-known design from Demko Knives, has not worked for me. So I'll talk about that a little bit later also. And this is a relatively expensive knife. So they were $450, before tax and everything. I live in Pennsylvania, which is another thing I'll talk about later, and that is where Demko Knives is, so I had to pay tax, which brought it to like $492. But before we get into all of that, I wanted to talk about the knife itself. So it is a nicely made knife. You can see that I got the Dayglow G10 version. There were lots of other G10 and carbon fiber handle materials, as well as titanium. Titanium ones were, significantly more expensive, I think $700. But it is all G10 for the handles. There are not liners or very small liners on this, I believe. Now, there must not be any liners. I had thought that in a video I saw Andrew Demko say that there were very small liners, but I think this has no liners. So it's meant to be a more compact option from Demko Knives. It's much smaller overall than a lot of their other offerings from the USA shop. So like the AD20, and there are some others that I'm not as familiar with. This is a smaller knife. Now it still has the shark lock, and so this is one of the things that Demko Knives is known for. You can see here the shark lock. The shark lock is a very nice lock. So you can see here, this engages with the tang. So you can see also that it says Magna Cut there. Engages with the tang. Hopefully you can see that. And so it's locked nice and securely. It locks very nicely. And then when you disengage this with this, helpful little notch here, it is super smooth on the close. And even when unlocked, there's no side-to-side play, so it's that smooth while having good lockup. So the lock is very, very fun to use. I would say fun to use in a kind of, I guess, fidgety way. So you can really open and close this knife easily. It sounds really nice, so a lot of times people will talk about that, especially with traditional knives. The walk and talk, this has great walk and talk. So you can hear that really kind of clicky and clacky and very nice there. And so it is easy to use and satisfying to use, that lock. And of course, locks up really solidly. Andrew Demko is known for making very secure locks. Then it also is centered well, so no issue there. And this has a new clip for Demko Knives. So you can see this is a milled clip. It's not a bent clip, it's milled, and it actually is held in by these two posts. So it goes into the center of the gap between the handles and is held in there. So it is reversible. So that's a nice thing. And I've had other people, tell me that they like this clip. Like my brother said that he liked the clip. So I think it's a good improvement over some of the other clips that they use. Now, one thing, this knife did come with a little bit of an imperfect edge, and I think probably some people will think that I'm being overly picky with this, but as a $450 or really closer to $500 knife, I think it's okay to be picky. And that is that it does, the edge, and hopefully you'll be able to see this, does turn down very slightly here. So you've got the curve, but then there's a little bit of a downturn, like it wasn't sharpened quite as much there, right near the sharpening choil or something along those lines. Now, that probably wouldn't be difficult at all to fix. You just sharpen it a little bit more right there when you sharpen it. I have not sharpened this knife. I have carried and used it some. I've used it only very lightly, to be completely honest. No like you know, hardcore use, but again, I think is designed to be an EDC knife. So, you know, that's one thing that I would prefer, that it didn't have that slight downturn there, but you know, after you sharpen it, it's probably going to go away pretty quickly. I also forgot to mention here that I do like this opening slot. It works nicely. You can see you can middle finger flick it, you can slow roll. I don't find that it works. You have to kind of get up in the top here for a thumb flick, but you can do it, but it's not as natural as slow roll and then you know, the middle finger flick there. So overall, made very nicely, but like I say, I would, you know, prefer that the edge not have that very, very slight imperfection on a nearly $500 knife. Not to say other knives in that price range also haven't come with imperfections, even, you know, worse imperfections for me. But one thing I will say about this lock is that it's not super comfortable in use to me. And so what I mean by that is, you know, on this knife, when I hold it like this and put my thumb here, this really sticks up into my thumb. And then even, you know, if I'm something like this or pinching, it just kind of feels like it's there, you know, this lock, in a way that I think other locks, a lot of other locks don't. Now, you know, is this gonna like tear your hand up or anything like that? No, definitely not. It's not something like that where it's a deal breaker or anything like that. It's just, I did notice in, you know, carrying it, using it a little bit, having my thumb here, that you definitely feel that ramp sticking out. Especially, you know, if you're choking up, you can feel it there, things like that. So I do think that this ramp sticks out a little bit more and is more noticeable when you are holding and using the knife than some other locks. So I wanted to talk about kind of the main thing that was that interested me in this particular knife. Now, I actually like big knives, so you know, one knife that I think is a really great option of a Demko design. This is the Cold Steel 4 Max Scout. Unfortunately, Demko isn't working with Cold Steel anymore, as far as I know. And you know, there's some issues with when Cold Steel was bought out and everything, but this is a great design and a ridiculously large knife. It has the triad lock that Demko designed, so it's a back lock with a stop pin. Very strong lock, but you know, the point being, I don't mind large knives. So why get this more compact offering from Demko Knives? Well, the thing is, the AD20, which is kind of their most popular, most easy to get, I guess, knife, actually has a main grip area that is too small for my hand. And so I'll put up a picture here that will show you. This actually is a picture from Demko Knives that they sent me. So thank you to them for sending that. I have had a couple AD20s before because I really wanted to like them, but the thing is that the main grip area is relatively small compared to the full handle length because of the upturn towards the butt of the handle. And so it actually turns out that this AD22, the main grip area, meaning from this finger guard here to the end of the handle, being that there is not an upturn, is pretty much the same length as the main grip area on the AD20. But because it doesn't have the upturn, I thought that it would feel more comfortable in my hand, and it does feel more comfortable. So, you know, you can get a grip on this, and even though my pinky sits a little bit over the edge here, hopefully you can see that, it's not being dug into or digging into the upturn at the end of the handle like on the AD20. So I saw that this, despite being a smaller knife, definitely a smaller knife than the AD20, had a similar main grip area, but not the upturn, and thought maybe this is the knife that will fit my hand from Demko Knives. Because, like I said, I have had a couple AD20s, and they just haven't worked. The AD20.5 also just a little bit small in my hands. I have very wide hands with short fingers, so often I do have issues like that with knives that don't have large handles. So that was kind of the main thing that drew me to this. The other thing, like I said earlier, is that Demko Knives is in Pennsylvania, which is the state that I live in. And in fact, Demko Knives, the shop is very close to where I work most of the time. It's like 15 to 30 minutes away. So I just, it's one of those things that it's cool to have a knife that's made nearby and to support a company that's made, that is nearby to where I work. So I've always wanted to have and keep and enjoy a knife made at Demko's shop, at the Demko Knife Shop in Pennsylvania. So they say wampum, but it's not actually exactly in wampum, I don't think. I think it's just right in Newcastle, but I'd have to look at the address. But it's right nearby where I work. Now, the downside of that is that it makes it so that I have to pay tax when I purchase from them. Now, maybe everybody does, I'm not sure. You get into sales tax, Nexus, and all that kind of stuff. But for sure, for me, I had to pay tax. So it took this knife from being a $450 knife to a $492 knife, which is really getting into a high cost knife, at least for me. I know for a lot of people, maybe that's, that's nothing, but for me, that's an expensive knife. It is right up with the most expensive knives that I have bought. And so, it makes it a little bit tough. That is kind of on top of the fact that I think at $450, it's already pretty expensive feeling to me. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is this is a production version of the AD22. And the reason I want to talk about that is that I was going to compare this price-wise to some other knives. So, for example, the Sebenza 31 is $500. And so, kind of very similar, especially if you can buy it somewhere where you don't pay tax, you're going to end up paying, only $8 more for the Sebenza. And then a Hinder XM18 is $450. So, right around the same price. I do actually think I paid tax on this, but I think I bought it from, I'm kind of forgetting, either DLT or GP Knives. But either way, about the same amount, even maybe a little bit less with tax. I guess it should be the same. But anyway, about the same. And so, this has G10, but it also is titanium, a little bit, higher end feeling material than pure G10. All three of these have Magna Cut steel, so, kind of similar there. Then the Sebenza is all titanium, so you've got that, and they're all USA made. So it kind of, I was thinking, man, I'm not sure how it really stacks up with these, but I do think that there's a difference in the kind of level of production of these knives. Now, I'm not super sure. I don't know how many employees Hinder Knives has or Chris Reeve Knives has, but I would bet that it's more people working and more going into, production-wise, these knives than this knife. So I don't know that you would call this a mid-tech, that's a term that doesn't really seem to get used quite as much anymore as it did before. But I do think that this is a smaller scale production than other knives like this that are in the same kind of price range. So that very well could be a part of what you're paying for to get to that $450, despite the, just G10 handle, which again is also for making it lightweight. Now, one thing is these G10 handles are thick, so it doesn't feel super small in the hand. The only thing for me, it does feel maybe a little bit small for my two fingers, my index finger and ring finger in this grip area here. But again, I have, wide, to put it nicely, I guess, fingers. So, that's kind of on me. But just something that I thought about when I was carrying and using this knife. I did also want to show the only other knife that has a similar lock. It's not the same, but a similar lock is this Sandrin Knives knife that I have, which has a similar lock, and you can see how much less obtrusive it is than the Shark lock, but at the same time, it's also much less easy to get a grip on that. So, you know, it's a different style, right? This is more of like a heavy duty user, and this is more of like a fancy, you know, gentleman's type knife. But it is a similar lock, and there are other locks that are similar out there, despite this shark lock being patented. So, so overall, I think kind of a mixed bag of feelings on this knife. Again, it has this slightly, you know, kind of imperfect edge. Now, this knife came with a detent that was super soft, and I had to send it in for warranty work. And this knife came with some very slight kind of burrs on, I guess I wasn't showing it to you, very slight burrs on the swedge. So, you know, again, imperfect. And also, you know, these knives need a lot of break-in, whereas this knife came just as smooth as it is now. So it certainly is a well-made knife. I do like the design. I think it is a much more easily carried and used design than the AD20. And I do appreciate that it doesn't have the upturn at the end of the handle, which makes it definitely more comfortable for me. I like the lock in using it, in enjoying the tactile side of it and the audio, the sound of it. But I also kind of feel like you can feel it when you're holding the knife and using the knife some. And, you know, the price is something that I want to have and enjoy and keep and use a Demko Knives knife, because it's just cool to have a knife that's made very nearby. I actually know one of Andrew Demko's brothers, and that's a cool thing, and it's good to support local companies and everything. But at the same time, it is just an expensive knife for me. I mean, and that's not to be just against this knife. Like even these, the Hinder and the Chris Reeve, the Sebenza, I kind of go back and forth on whether they're worth it to me, you know, whether the value is there. So it could be just that these aren't necessarily the price range of knives that I am most comfortable with. You know, I am very comfortable with this. Yeah, it is made overseas, but it's made very well. It is a, you know, great design, another Demko design, more than enough handle space on this one. Beefy knife, super nice and smooth, and can be had very often for like $50 when they go on sale. So, you know, maybe I'm kind of I don't know, a pleb or plebeian or whatever, or a more of a budget enthusiast, and that's okay to me. You know, like when I look at this pile of knives here and think that there's $1,500 here, basically, it's like, whoa, that's a lot. So I really do want to have and keep and want to carry and feel good about a knife from Demko Knives, but I'm not sure that this one is it yet. Hopefully I will find one at some point. This has a lot going for it, but I'm not sure it's quite enough for me. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and it ended up being longer than I intended. And I hope that I didn't sound too negative about this knife or Demko Knives. I certainly don't mean to be. It's just that, like, again, when a knife is expensive, I want it to really meet my expectations and be something that I'm excited to have and carry and use. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell and select all so you know when I post new videos. Check out my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like these and knife-related topics. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.